How do we get from this to this? Thanks to mobile devices, today's kids have unprecedented access to information, communications, and ways to share and collaborate. But there are also questions. How can students find balance in their digital lives? What is the role of teachers, and what is the role of parents? And what must be taught so that students can effectively use technology not just for amusement, but for learning? To answer these questions, adults may have to learn to think a little differently and are going to have to engage with our digital kids both in the classroom and at home. For everyone, this is going to be new territory. We're going to have to come up with a roadmap. We'll find our way through trial and error, paying close attention to the needs of children and keeping our eyes on the prize and oh my gosh, it's a cat playing piano. Check it out. Welcome to Feedback. I'm Mark Ray. Today we're talking about a subject that can be unfamiliar to both parents and teachers: how children are using technology. Some call today's kids digital natives. To be sure, they've grown up with technology in their hands, in the family minivan, and increasingly in the classroom. A couple of years ago, voters in Vancouver approved a levy to put technology into the hands of students. Vancouver Public Schools has developed what it calls the We Learn One-to-One initiative. Basically, students have their own device for use both at school and home. Since the start of this school year, the district has handed out almost 6,000 devices to both middle and high school students. We had students at Vancouver School of Arts and Academics ask their classmates about how, when, and where they use technology.
I use technology everywhere. There's not an hour in my day, I don't think, that I don't pick up my phone or look at a computer screen.
I use most of my technology at home.
I use technology pretty much everywhere, at home, at school, on my phone when I'm not at those places.
School, home, all the...
Mainly at school.
I use technology more at home because, I have my videos there and that's where I do most of my homework, so.
Was it off?
Not today, Satan. Maybe try it again.
I spend probably more time viewing a screen than I should on a day-to-day basis.
I use technology maybe 3 hours a day.
On a day at school, I probably spend closer to 6 hours.
Well, I do most of my homework on a screen, so I'd say about 2 hours, and then an hour watching TV, so about 3 hours a day.
I probably spend at least 3 hours a day, probably 4, viewing a screen.
Viewing the screen in all, I'd have to say around 8 hours, including phone and computer.
That sounds really bad, but it's the truth.
Well, we have both parents and teachers with us today. Could you guys please introduce yourselves?
I'm Laura Day, and I'm an instructional technology facilitator.
I'm Monica Huey. I'm a teacher and parent.
I'm Tatiana Demchikov, and I am a parent and I work in the IT.
Wonderful. So how is technology use different now than when you were growing up?
I think it's so much more saturated into everything. I remember when we were in 4th grade, we started having computer classes, and so once a week we went down for half an hour to learn how to use the computers, and that's not how it is now. You're not learning how to use technology, you're learning with technology because it's around us all the time.
Monica, what are you seeing in your classrooms?
I think technology is used everywhere. At least in my class, I feel like it's used for the start of a project, the end of the project, and everything in between. So the research, the how we get to it, how we collaborate, it's almost, I agree with you, it's in everything, and it's so much harder to pull it out. What would be left if I took the technology away? I'm not sure much.
When I was back in school, I should say, back in the older days, the things we used to do on computers would be Oregon Trail, word munchers. You probably get a typing thing in there once in a while. But now with everything out there, it's just so much easier because everything is on either iPads or other devices that it's just, you know, everything is just about on there.
So what do you see kids, so what are you seeing kids either at home or in the classroom, what are they doing on these devices? What are some of the things that either serious or playful things? What's happening?
A lot of their reading and their note-taking is all on their devices now, whether it's in specific e-readers or pulling it into apps to annotate. And so just a lot of that paper reading and writing is all happening on the iPad. A lot of it's still handwritten, but you can mesh handwritten and typed, and you can read more efficiently because you can look things up when you don't know what a word means or you're not understanding the context. So it's,
are kids still using paper and pencil?
Yeah, and some more than others, and others not at all. It just kind of depends on the kid, I think.
I mean, I see my own students and I see my own kids use it a lot to answer their own questions. It seems like it's such a nice built-in, oh, I had a question about this actor on this show that I'm watching right now. I want to know if they're still around, and I can easily find that answer and figure out what else they did. And but I also see it, like you said, for note-taking and organization. It's almost like their planning is done electronically if they're so inclined, and they can plan really well. They're almost more independent than maybe they used to be.
And I know that with my kids, anytime they get on any equipment, it's usually math games or word searches or anything that's related to anything they can learn. So it comes in handy.
So it sounds to me like you're seeing kids are being somewhat serious about their use of technology, but that can't be all the time. I mean,
not all the time. You know, they do get to slack off a little bit here and there, but there's definitely limitations to it.
So are there things that, you know, with that much technology in the hands of kids, are there things that, you know, that are concerns that you have about kids using technology? I'm sure there are, so you know, what's on that list?
Well, speaking of collaboration, you know, there's a lot of access for them to do things online, to research online, to talk to people, to email, to chat, and it's hard to find that great balance between how do I allow them to test this out and find what's dangerous and what's not, and how do I still hold their hand and guide them through it so nobody takes advantage of their information. So it's one of those where if you shut them off entirely, they might not learn their lesson until it's too late, but you can't quite send them out into the wild because that's not going to work out either.
Might get them in trouble.
Yeah, so it's a good learning opportunity, but as a parent, it creates a lot of headaches as well.
I was thinking about that earlier today because I have a cousin who's 15, just started high school, and when we were kids, if your parents knew you weren't sneaking out of the house and they knew you were in your house, they could be pretty sure that you were safe. But now a kid can be in their bedroom and not be safe, and it's a little, that's the scary side of it, I think. Yeah, very concerning.
Well, it sounds to me like all three of you ladies are connected with technology quite a bit in your own either daily or personal lives. So how, I mean, as you compare yourself to kids, how comfortable are you using technology?
I think I'm pretty comfortable, but sometimes the kids get on that phone and change things that I can't figure out, let me tell you.
I feel like I'm very good with the technology. Sometimes there's social media things that my younger cousins, because they're more at that generation that's into that, and I'm not so much, that sometimes the Twitter, I don't know what's going on with the Twitter.
I would agree with that. I think the social media, I'm kind of illiterate. I'm very stubborn about things like Twitter and Facebook and things like that. But in terms of the how to work different apps and things like that, I feel like I get it. I do recognize, though, it takes a lot more practice for someone my age to retain how to do it and feel like I'm doing it seamlessly and without having to think about it than for them. From the outside, when I look at kids using it, it feels like the first time and it's permanently inscribed in their brain. It takes me more than once to learn it. So.
We asked students from VSAA what they think of their parents' tech skills. I'm going to warn you, get ready for a rough ride.
Just about all the things I can do with technology, I'd say they can't do. That's probably what I'd say.
My mom's a graphic designer, so I think my mom knows way more than I do, but my dad, he can't.
I guess I can like figure out like how to like make things work.
I had to explain to my mom how to use Snapchat the other day, which is not very technically advanced, so I don't know. Maybe I can do a lot more than them.
He got a virus downloaded on my sister's computer, and it's kind of...
My mom isn't very good at using technology. She can use like Microsoft and Excel, like the basic like office programs, but other than that, like she should not use a computer.
How much time do you have? Let's see.
My parents don't use Macs, so when they try to use my Mac, they don't know how to do really anything, and they think they do, and it makes me really nervous.
My parents think that if I download any Adobe software, it's going to put a virus on my computer, so I have to like pitch to them why I need this.
My parents think that it will rot your brain.
All right, well,
That was tough.
what's your reaction to that, what the kids were saying? I mean, are they on the mark? I mean, are they accurate?
I think for a lot of it, probably if the parents, depending, what they're schooling and what they had technology-wise when they were growing up.
And I think the way the technology is used now is so different in a lot of ways, and so if you haven't really had much use professionally or educationally for technology in the last 15 years, it's very different than an Oregon Trail.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
It's tough to hear that. The kids were pretty ruthless and honest. I don't know. I don't know if the generation is as much of a barrier as whether, I guess, the parents are willing to take that journey with their kids. I mean, you hear of parents who are completely sold on certain sports and their kid chooses a totally different sport, but what do? Do you just say, well, my generation played baseball and yours only does soccer and I'm just not going to learn it? Or do you go and you learn that with your kid? Like, at a certain point, maybe there's a willingness piece also. I don't know.
That's a great comparison.
So.
I mean, do kids have, they're obviously use technology, smartphones, their gaming systems or whatever. I mean, are you seeing in the classroom, does that transfer to skills when they come to the classroom?
I think yes and no. I mean, I think in some ways, for example, when we give the kids their iPads, they pick it up very quickly, but learning how to use it educationally and how to use it in a productive way, it's newer to them. They still pick it up pretty fast, but it is a new way for some of them if they've not been doing that.
So in the classrooms, we talked a little bit about rules at home. So what are some of the guidelines that you're finding successful in terms of guiding kids in the classroom?
I always start from the premise that you're not alone and you can't use the device as if you are alone. You're part of a learning community and you have a pilot, so to speak, a guide, and that's me. And the rest of your classmates are the rest of the people on this ship, and you cannot make us butt out, whether you want to or not. So if that's what you're doing, whether you're turning your screen away or hiding it or doing something that is shutting the rest of the learning community out, then that's probably not something good. So I always try to reference it in terms of, are you leaving us behind and doing your own thing, or are you actually still part of this learning community? Because that usually tells you if you're on the right path or not. And, yeah.
In your professional, I know you do professional development, you're doing VSAA now,
Yeah.
iPads at VSAA, so are there some specific things that you teach kids or teach teachers as they get those devices in their classrooms?
Yeah, we go over some of the ways to change your classroom management to facilitate the use of the iPad. I think one of the most important things is realizing that kids are still kids and they're still going to do the same things. Kids who would be passing notes in class are now going to be passing emails in class, and so you really need to look at it in that same frame of reference and kind of treat it the same way. Even though it's digital, it's still misbehavior, and you're going to treat it the same way. And you have to be on top. It requires the teacher to really be on top of what's going on, but it can, I think, create a better dynamic and relationship as you're all working together. And
well, we've asked other parents in our district to submit some questions to our educators using social media. And the first one is a video question.
How has the use of iPads in the classroom impacted interactions between teachers and students?
Okay, so the question is, how have bringing iPads into the classroom affected the relationship between teacher and student? That's a great question.
I think there's a smaller gap between teachers and students in terms of status. So teachers aren't viewed so much as the seat of knowledge, and the student is just asking, please, please fill my brain with knowledge, because that's not really what's happening anymore. So it's a little more collegial. I know that can be off-putting to some people who still want that authority to stay theirs, but for teachers who are open to, being a little more collegial in their relationship with the students, it can also foster a lot of respect for learning, not for you as a teacher, but for learning in general, so that when you're done with that student and you pass them on to the next teacher, it's not whether they like or respect that teacher, it's just that they've learned to respect learning in general and to see how they fit into it. So hopefully it doesn't matter who gets them next, because now the kid has changed. So.
And we have another question, so here it is.
I have a responsibility to know what my kids are watching on the internet. How will I know what they're watching at school?
Laura, you want to take a shot at that? Sorry to put you on the spot. That was a tough one.
Well, like all of our technology that we have access to the internet, our iPads are still filtered, and so what the kids are getting access to is fairly safe, but as with anything, they have to also be aware. And so I think one of the things that's great about how much technology they're getting in school is they are in a fairly protected environment learning how to keep themselves safe. Because if you don't ever teach them anything, they're going to go to college and it's going to be scary because they're going to be little lambs for the slaughter. Whereas now it's pretty protected, but they are having to also learn how to keep themselves safe at the same time.
Well, it sounds like parents and teachers have their work cut out for them. I want to thank my guests for being here today. It's been a wonderful conversation. In our next episode of Feedback, we'll be talking about digital citizenship, which actually came up today, or how to teach kids to behave responsibly and safely online. If you have a comment or question about that topic, please send in a message using the hashtag VPSFeedback on Twitter. It can be a tweet or even a video like you saw earlier today. That was a great conversation. I heard a few key ideas that jumped out for me. I heard kids that don't have a lot of respect for adults' knowledge or use of technology, and I have to wonder if that's creating walls between digital natives and the adults who are not. I heard parents and teachers talking about the need to set very clear rules and guidelines about the use of technology, both at school and home. I also heard adults very excited about the possibility that today's children have thanks to technology. And in the end, there was far more hope than fear. I really appreciate this feedback. Until next time, I'm Mark Ray.